Hello guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is if Naruto becomes Hokage and gets the respect of the whole village and married Hinata Part 1. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. Today was the best day of Hinata's life. She was getting married to the man who she's had a crush on ever since childhood. She was going to spend the rest of her life with this person, who she's admired and looked up to for so long. She was getting betrothed to this man, who she's loved all her life. Naruto Uzumaki. It was an arranged marriage, conducted and planned by the head elders of the village. The last step for Naruto to finally become Hokage, was that he must choose a bride from one of the prestige clans of Konoha. It was a shock, really, to both of them. Being the oldest in her family, she was the only candidate from the Hyuga clan lined up alongside with many other women from recognizable clans. He chose her. It was a moment she would never forget. But she also knew that he chose her because she was the only one out of those 50 women that he knew. They grew up together, fought many battles alongside each other, they went on countless missions together, and so it was only logical that she'd be the one that he picked. When he did choose her, he apologized to her over and over again. He knew that if he chose her, that meant her future was bound to him. She kept reassuring him that it was okay, that she knew the reason why he'd choose her over the others, but he just kept looking at her with those regretful eyes. Even now, when they stood next to each other in front of the whole village, he still looked at her like that. Sorry, Hinata, he muttered quietly so that only she could hear. She made a faint smile at him and just slightly shook her head. Why couldn't he see that she was so beyond happy right now? That this was all she's ever wanted. Her heart was pounding like crazy and she was proud that she's gotten over her habit of fainting and blushing excessively whenever she got nervous. When she stared at his blue eyes that captivated her every moment, she felt breathless and lightheaded. People in the village were whistling and shouting happy comments. Most of them were from their friends, of course. Before she was on the platform, Sakura, Ino, Tenten, and the other girls were swooning over her, congratulating her on finally getting Naruto after all these years. This would have been a perfect moment. It would have been. But it wasn't, because she knew for a fact that he did not feel the same as her. The whole time, his expression was regretful and he didn't seem at all happy. He'd flash a couple of smiles here and there to fake it, but she knew that he has never once saw her romantically or even looked at her as a woman who was capable of being by his side. It was always Sakura. Even now, when she followed his eyes to where he was gazing at in the crowd, it fell right upon Sakura, who was evidently standing by Sasuke. Sasuke had returned momentarily to witness this ceremony before he resumed his journey of self-redemption. Hinata refused to let that ruin this moment. Though she knew reality wasn't as perfect as she wanted it to be, for this moment right now, she was willing to lie to herself. Naruto Uzumaki, I pronounce you, the 7th Hokage of Konohagakure, head of this village and all affairs. Hinata Hyuga, I pronounce you the wife of the 7th Hokage, that you may share all responsibilities alongside him. The people of this village entrust our lives in both of your leadership for years to come. Kakashi announced as he slowly turned the two towards the village. People of Konoha, Naruto and Hinata Uzumaki. Hinata nearly jumped at the sound of the roaring crowd. She has never been hit with this kind of realization in her life before. She was the wife of an Hokage. She was the head lady of this village. She was a leader of a nation. Suddenly, those happy feelings that she had just a second ago disappeared. This whole time, she was thinking about how she was finally going to be with Naruto, that she didn't even think about the full extent of what it meant to be married to him. Her hands trembled at the sudden thought of what would lay ahead of her. She knew for a fact that Naruto was going to lead the village into prosperity and strength, but was she capable of being both a good wife to him and a leader to these people? Would she be able to handle the stress that she could barely handle in her own clan? Would she be able to survive this, knowing that he didn't even love her? Then in that moment, she felt like crying. She felt like crumbling to pieces at the very fear that hit the pit of her stomach when she realized what she got herself into. She realized why Naruto apologized to her over and over again. She was entering a contract marriage. A loveless marriage. A marriage that was for nothing else but for the name of being an Hokage's wife. She was entering into a dangerous life of politics, a life of duty to the people of Konoha, and a life of managing both internal and external responsibilities with other villages. She was going to become someone that everyone was going to look up to. Everyone was going to watch her every move, and because she was at the utmost highest division of leadership that a woman could have in Konoha, all the women in the village will look upon her every decision. She wasn't even as strong as most of the women in Konoha. She wasn't the smartest, the prettiest, nor the most confident or outspoken person there was. Yet, here she was, standing in front of her beloved village as the Hokage's wife. She let out a shaky sigh as she tried to calm herself down. It was a learning process. She would try her very best, no matter what may come her way. She would do her best to become someone that even her father would respect. She will train to become a stronger shinobi and represent the honor of her Hyuga clan. She will no longer shy away from things that make her nervous, and she knew she would have to practice becoming someone who spoke with authority and power. She would have to become a loving wife to Naruto, no matter if he will ever come to love her not. She will become a mother to both her future children and the children of Konoha. She knew she was going to have to become someone who will not shake or crumble at anything or to anyone. Suddenly, she felt someone grasp her hand and all her thoughts vanished. She glanced over at Naruto, who looked at her worriedly. "You okay? It's almost over. We just have to walk to the Konoha headquarters now." Hinata pushed down her fears and her eyes suddenly held a determination that she's never felt before. Boldly, she entangled her fingers with his and flashed a sincere smile at him. "I'm okay. I'm ready." It was the worst day of Naruto's life. Sure, he reached his dream. Sure, he's going to become Hokage, leader of the village he loved more than anything. But he wasn't going to spend his lifelong dream with the woman he loved the most. Instead, he was marrying his friend who has fought alongside him his whole life and who's always been so gentle and kind. It wasn't that he despised the idea of being married to her, it was just that, it was so unexpected that she was the one who he would be spending his whole life with. He's never once even looked at her as a potential spouse or had any kind of romantic feelings towards her. And he hated himself that he was going to make her do this with him. When he saw her in that line of women he was supposed to choose from, he knew he would choose her. She was the only one he knew and was comfortable with. He chose her because it was just better that he married his friend than some stranger. He apologized to her again and again because he knew he was going to regret this his whole life. Even now, standing here with her in front of everyone, he still felt guilty for making her do this. "Sorry, Hinata," he muttered so that only she could hear it. She only smiled faintly at him and shook her head. She was always so fragile. He was just scared that she wouldn't be able to handle this. He told himself that it was okay even if she couldn't, he would do all the work if necessary. He was going to protect her just like how he was going to protect the village. He would try to love her. He knew he wasn't going to get over Sakura anytime soon, but he would try. She was going to be his wife and he was more than capable of giving her the love and attention that she deserved. It was just going to take some time because he's never had that type of relationship with anyone. He couldn't help but feel heartbroken at the sight of Sakura in crowd, next to Sasuke. He knew that there was no one else for her, but Sasuke, and now, undeniably, there was no other girl but her for Sasuke. He sighed and quickly pushed those thoughts away. It wasn't the time to be thinking about things such as his long unrequited love when he was going to be named a leader of a whole nation right now. "Naruto Uzumaki, I pronounce you, the 7th Hokage of Konohagakure, head of this village and all affairs. Hinata Hyuga, I pronounce you the wife of the 7th Hokage, that you may share all responsibilities alongside him. The people of this village entrust our lives in both of your leadership for years to come. Kakashi announced as he slowly turned the two towards the village. People of Konoha, Naruto and Hinata Uzumaki. Naruto flashed a smile at the roaring crowd. This was the moment he had been waiting for his whole life. He looked at his beloved village and vowed to himself that he would do whatever it takes to keep Konoha as a strong, safe, and united place. There will be no enemies that would be able to penetrate or destroy anything or anyone, and he would make sure that peace will reign for as long as he was Hokage. Since he was a boy, all he's ever wanted was for people to stop pointing at him like he was an outcast and a monster. All he's ever wanted was for people to respect and see him as a strong shinobi. He never gave up, and he was proud of himself for this very moment. With Hinata by his side, too, he knew things would be okay. Though she wasn't the strongest, he knew she had her good traits. From all the years that he's known her, she was an honest, reliable, and smart person. He didn't know if she was going to be able to handle this alongside him, but he would train and grow together with her in all aspects of leadership. He will teach her how to be confident, and he will learn to be both a good husband and a good father of their children in the future. He glanced over at Hinata and a sudden rush of worry went through him when he saw her troubled expression. She looked scared and he guessed that all this was overwhelming for her right now. He wanted to comfort her, so he reached over and gently held her hand. "You okay? It's almost over. We just have to walk to the Konoha headquarters now." He was taken by surprise when her expression suddenly changed. She met his gaze and smiled with such confidence and determination that he's never seen before. Her beautiful pearl eyes shined brightly and his heart raced just a little faster when she held his hand back. "I'm okay. I'm ready." It was strange. Those two statements alone made his worries about her fade away. Instead of seeing her as the fragile and soft-spoken Hinata he knew, it was like she suddenly changed into this confident and strong-willed woman right before his eyes. He smiled back at her and thought that maybe he might not regret this decision after all. Of course, the wedding night scared the hell out of Hinata. She certainly wasn't ready for that yet. She had already showered, was dressed in a long silk gown, and was sitting in what was now hers and Naruto's bed. They also owned their own place within the Konoha headquarters now. She tried to calm herself down, but her beating heart wasn't helping at all. They had to consummate their marriage at some point, she knew that, but she didn't want to do it yet, not right now, when he didn't even have the same feelings as she did. Her heart nearly stopped when the bathroom door opened and Naruto stepped out in an orange silk robe. She almost smiled at the fact that even the pajamas were in his favorite color, but she couldn't smile because her nervousness was consuming her right now. Naruto closed the bathroom door behind him and slipped into bed beside her, sitting quietly in the same position as she was in. To be honest, he didn't actually want to do it either. He knew she was scared and that this whole thing left her with no choice. It left him with no choice either. He cleared his throat before he spoke. Hinata. Hinata's gripped the blanket just a little tighter. Yes. Wow. She didn't even stutter. He expected her voice to tremble or something, but she answered him so firmly. Was she not nervous at all? Sorry. He apologized for the 100th time since he chose her. I don't want to make this uncomfortable for the both of us. You're one of my precious friends and I wouldn't do anything to hurt you. I know this marriage is going to be hard for the both of us, but I'm willing to give my all for both you and for this village. This was the exact reason why she fell for him. He genuinely cared about the people who were dear to him. He wouldn't do anything that would put them in harm or do anything that would place them in a difficult situation. He was one of the reasons why she's gained so much confidence in herself over these past few years. Her heart nearly skipped a beat when he slightly shifted so he was sitting a little faced towards her. He reached for her hands and held them in his own. I'm actually a bit nervous right now, and I've never done any intimate things with a woman before, so I apologize if this isn't what you imagined for your first time. If I'm hurting you in any way, just let me know. Hinata felt herself blush for the first time in forever and she closed her eyes tightly when he let go of her hands and gently laid her down so that he hovered over her. She turned her head to the side because she didn't dare to look at him right now. She almost gasped when she felt him lean down to place a featherlight kiss on her neck. Suddenly, she took a hold of his robe and immediately sat up, pushing him away, bumping her head with his in the process. Ow! They both winced and exclaimed at the same time. Hinata let go of him and she placed her hand on her forehead, which was probably red from the hard hit. She gazed up at Naruto and he was also holding his forehead. I'm sorry. She immediately apologized. Naruto looked at her and she was taken by surprise when he suddenly let out a small laugh. Hinata, you really don't want to do this right now, do you? Hinata bit her bottom lip and then she slowly shook her head. I'm sorry, it's just, it doesn't feel right. Can we just wait until the right moment comes for the both of us? Can we wait before doing this? She asked hopefully. Naruto sighed in relief and he smiled at her. He felt incredibly awkward kissing her like that and he was glad she pushed him away before things went any further. To be honest, it didn't feel right for me either. Today's been a tiring day, probably more for you than for me, so I understand if you feel like this right now. We can wait. I won't mind. Hinata also sighed in relief and she thanked him. She was glad that she was bold enough to push him away like that. She was also glad that he understood and felt the same way she did about this. Can we just sleep now? She asked. He laughed again at her innocence and just nodded. They both laid down, facing each other. Naruto's eyes trailed over her face. She was his wife. Hinata Hyuga was his wife. It was kinda unbelievable now that it really hit him. Hinata was also gazing at him, admiring his blue eyes and blonde hair. It felt like a dream, laying here beside him. Naruto Uzumaki was her husband. It was a strange thing to think about. In a blink of an eye, they ended up in this situation that they never thought would happen in a million years. Good night, Naruto, she muttered softly. Night, Hinata. He couldn't help but smile as her eyes fluttered closed and she quickly drifted off to sleep. Then he blinked curiously when a sudden thought struck him. Thinking about the way she smiled today and the way her eyes lit up with determination, hearing the confidence in her voice and experiencing the boldness in her actions, and then now when he was gazing her, seeing how long her hair grew, how long her eyelashes were, how pretty and pink her lips and her cheeks were against the paleness of her flawless skin and how peaceful she looked when she was sleeping. He wondered, has she always been this beautiful? He awoke the next day and at first, he was confused as to where he was, but then all of the events of yesterday came rushing back in his head. Oh yay, I'm Hokage now. He grinned happily and sat up, stretching out his arms. Then he suddenly realized that Hinata wasn't even in bed with him. He looked at the time and realized it was only 8 a.m. Then the aroma of fresh soup and ramen hit his nose and he got excited when he guessed what she was probably doing right now. He quickly jumped out of bed and washed up before running out the bedroom and into the kitchen. Are you cooking ramen? Hinata nearly jumped at his sudden shout, and she turned to face him. Instead of answering him, she laughed softly at his appearance. His hair was sticking up in unusual ways, his robe was loosened a little so that his chest was exposed and his expression was like that of a little boy who just got a birthday cake. Naruto's heart fluttered slightly at the sound of her laughter. He didn't think he ever heard her laugh so wholeheartedly like that before. Yes, I'm cooking ramen. She finally replied and walked towards him. She hesitated a bit, but then she boldly reached up towards him and ran her fingers through his hair, brushing out the tangles. Well, shit. He's never had anyone do that before, and he was surprised that she wasn't even nervous to touch him like it was normal. It was so weird that she got his heart racing like this when he's known her for so long and didn't even consider her anything more as a friend. The fact that she was so close to him right now wasn't really helping either. You should have at least brushed your hair and wore something other than this robe before you came out. She laughed again before her hands traveled down and she tightened his robe so that it fully covered his chest. The ramen's ready, so you can eat now if you want. Naruto once again couldn't help but smile at her. Thank you, Hinata. She led him over to the table and his eyes glistened at the sight. 2 bowls of fresh ramen sat at the edge of both ends of the table, still steaming, and there were a bunch of small side dishes such as fish cakes and seaweed scattered in the middle of the table. This looks so amazing. He didn't waste any time and sat down, grabbing the chopsticks even before she sat down in her own chair. She laughed for the third time that morning when he slurped the noodles loudly and picked at each and every side dish there was. Then she remembered that he was Hokage now, and it made her so happy that she was the only one who got to see this side of him. Naruto glanced up at her and stopped eating so fast. She was looking at him with such a face that seemed like she absolutely adored him right now. It was a bit strange. He's never had anyone look at him so affectionately like that before, and then he suddenly wondered why she was even gazing him with such an expression. He swallowed what was in his mouth and then set down his chopsticks. Sorry, I should have waited for you to sit down and take the first bite. You cooked all this so early in the morning and I just dove in like this. He apologized. He felt like he was always apologizing to her. It always felt like she did so much for him, yet all he did was take what she had. It's okay, go ahead and eat. You're probably gonna have a busy day ahead of you. Hinata reassured him. So are you. You're my wife now, so you'll be busy alongside me. You're my wife now. That statement made both of them freeze for a slight moment. Naruto was surprised that he said it so easily. It felt both unreal and real at the same time, that she was wife now. Hinata could feel herself blushing, and she looked down at her bowl. Honestly, it still felt like a dream, even though he was really sitting there across from her. The silence was broken by a loud knock on the door. I'll get it. Naruto quickly got up and ran to the door, opening it to reveal a middle-aged man who held a stack of paper in his arms. He bowed to Naruto before speaking. Hokage-sama, these are the paperworks that require your signature for the day. There are also missions and important official documents from neighboring villages that need to be looked over. Oh, of course. Thank you. I'll head over to the main office in 10 minutes. Naruto bowed his head and took the papers before the man walked away. Hinata came up behind him and her eyes widened at the huge stack of documents. You're supposed to look through all of those. Hey. Yay. When Tsunade was Hokage, she always had stacks of papers like this whenever I saw her, too. It's fine, it all comes with the responsibilities of being Hokage. Besides, everything in these documents are important matters, so I have to make sure to read them thoroughly anyways. I'll help. You can go ahead and do the signatures and I'll read the ones that don't need a signature and just report them to you later tonight. Hinata suggested as she reached out a hand to him, expecting him to give her half of the stack. Are you sure? Naruto blinked. Hinata nodded at him and urged him to give her half. He sighed and then divided the stack of papers, giving some to her. Let's finish breakfast before we head out, then. The next few days were hectic and chaotic. Naruto was busy running around, getting acquainted with where everything was, what kinds of responsibilities and activities he was going to be in charge of, and who the important people of both Konoha and other villages were. Hinata was also busy running around, overseeing the Ninja Academy's programs, managing market affairs, and reading over important documents that Naruto was too busy to read. It was different than what they both imagined because they rarely saw each other. After a long day of learning their duties and finishing their jobs, the only time they saw each other was during the evening or night. Hinata expected the stress and headaches that were going to happen sooner or later, but she didn't know she was going to be so overwhelmed by just 1 month of training and being educated about Konoha's leadership system. She also missed him. Instead of working beside him, they were apart for the whole day, doing their own individual things for the village, and she was a bit upset that she didn't even see him until bedtime. Naruto, on the other hand, was so busy that he didn't even have time to think about what she was doing. However, he found it surprisingly comforting to go home to see her sound asleep on the bed. Seeing her peaceful and relaxed expression made everything he was stressed about that day go away. When he came home today, it was already far past midnight and he guessed that she was probably sound asleep already. He quietly opened the door to their room and to his surprise, he saw her sitting up on the bed. Hinata, it's late, shouldn't you be sleeping already? He walked over to her and sat down beside her. Hinata turned to face him and she stayed quiet for a few moments before she finally spoke. When are we going to be able to spend some time together? Naruto stared at her blankly. You want to spend time together? Well, I mean, we are married. And for the past month or so, we barely see each other. It's only logical that married couples spend time together, right? Naruto understood her point and he nodded. Yay, but the things that we're busy with are important. I'm pretty sure that after this month of training is over and we learn how to properly do our duties, we'll be able to have some free time. Hinata opened her mouth and she was about to say that she missed him, but she figured it was too early to act on her feelings. She sighed and forced a smile at him. I understand. Then I'll just have to be patient. She then laid down and turned so that her back was facing him instead. Naruto felt guilty again. He didn't know how to care or love her properly like a husband should love a wife. He was convinced that she probably still loved him. He still remembered clearly her confession when she fought against pain to protect him. Maybe that was why she always gazed at him with so much affection. Sure, she made his heart race here and there and she was undeniably getting more beautiful every day in front of his eyes, but he still couldn't find it himself to say that he had strong feelings for her yet. He knew for sure that right now, regrettably, his heart still belonged to Sakura. But he made a vow to himself that he would try to love Hinata back. It was going to take a while to get accustomed to this lifestyle and to the fact that she was his significant other now, but this was reality. He laid down and faced her slim back. Then he boldly scooted closer to her so that their bodies were almost touching and he reached over with one arm to embrace her. After 2.5 months of leadership training, they were finally free to do their duties by themselves. Naruto basically memorized everything there was to know about Konoha. Its past, its people, its economic and market status, its history of past Hokages, its relation with neighboring villages, and he probably knew the name of every clan there was in the village. He was head of all trading affairs, he was board leader of every meeting there was to be, he had the authority to send out teams and conduct whatever mission there was needed to complete it, and he was required to attend every important event that will happen in the village. Hinata was now an expert at knowing how the education system ran in the ninja academies. She knew every jutsu and tricks in the books that there was to know, and she had more knowledge of everything about Konoha right now than she's ever had because of reading all those documents. She's spoken and worked with respected ninjas in the village that she's only ever dreamt of meeting, and she had the authority to share whatever responsibilities Naruto was in charge of. It was a lot to take in. They were exhausted by the end of the training and the real thing just started. Naruto sat in his office, with a major headache, signing off a team of Junin to a mission. Report back to me within a month. Since I am assigning you guys to an A-rank mission, if there are any complications or life-threatening situations, notify me and I will send help immediately. He replied before the masked ninjas dispersed from his office. He sighed and turned his chair around so that he was looking out at the village. He wondered what Hinata was doing right now. It's been a while since they've even spoken. He didn't really expect that there would be so much distance between them when he became Hokage. He didn't know how their marital bond would grow when they didn't even have time to see each other. He didn't know if he would ever learn to love her back if he didn't even get to know her on a personal level. His thoughts were cut short when he heard the door open. The chakra presence felt all too familiar, and then to his surprise, he turned to see Hinata walk in, holding a bag. Hinata spent her morning going over what trade products were being imported and exported out of Konoha right now. She didn't even know how the trade system worked until now. She also paid a short visit to Ino's flower shop and the hospital to see Sakura. She hasn't even seen or talked to them since the wedding ceremony, so she figured she might as well drop by and greet them. She also stopped by for a short while at the Hyuga household to say hello to her father and sister and to pay her respects to Neji, whose picture was hung on the wall in their main Hyuga compound before she continued on with her busy day. After reviewing the progress of the genin at the Ninja Academy, she rushed home to quickly make some food because she had an hour before she and Naruto were going to go see and approve the grounds for the Chunin exams. She smiled proudly at her bento boxes and set them nicely in a small bag before she headed out. This would be the first time she will be visiting Naruto in his office, and it would also be the first time they would be eating lunch together. She barely had time to make breakfast because they both had to be up early to tend to important matters, so this was special to her. On her way up to the Hokage's official workplace, she had to bow countless times because there were so many people in the Konoha headquarters that greeted her. She sighed in relief when she finally made it to his door, and she quickly fixed herself before reaching for the doorknob. "Good afternoon, Hokage." She greeted him and closed the door behind her. "You don't have to be so formal." Naruto chuckled at her as she sat across from him. "What are you doing here? It's the first time you've ever visited me in my office. The next Chunin exams are coming up, remember?" Naruto blinked for a moment, and then his eyes widened. "Oh shoot. I totally forgot about that." He remembered that he and Hinata were required to go oversee and approve the training grounds, arena, and the designated places where the tournaments were going to be held. Wow. Talk about luck. He was just thinking about how he didn't get to spend time with her, and now they get to do this together. This was also the first time they would be out in public together since their marriage ceremony in front of the village. Hinata held up the bag in her hand. "We have an hour till we have to be there, so I had some extra time to make some food. I was thinking maybe we can have our first lunch together." She almost laughed when his eyes immediately lit up. "Of course. That'd be awesome. I was just having a headache and I didn't have breakfast either." Hinata took out the 2 bento boxes from the bag and placed one in front of him and one in front of herself. In each bento box, there was onigiri, yakisoba, Japanese noodles, tamagoyaki, rolled up omelets, salted teriyaki salmon, slices of fish cake, small steamed buns, and a small batch of salad on the side. She also took out a small pitcher of tea and 2 cups and placed it on the desk. "Enjoy," she replied before handing him the chopsticks. He excitedly took the chopsticks from her and opened his bento. "I'm so lucky to have you. You always cook the best things ever." Hinata blushed at his statement, and then Naruto also felt embarrassed when he realized what he just blurted out. "Well, you do always cook delicious foods, hee." Naruto grinned cheekily at her, trying to lighten up the suddenly tense mood. Hinata was glad and loved the fact that he wasn't such an awkward person. She picked up her own chopsticks, but before she ate, she once again glanced up at him and made a faint smile. "I'm lucky to have you, too." Memories came rushing back when they were in the forest of death. "Oh man, this is where everything started." Naruto sighed nostalgically. There were a group of 3 Junins, including Shikamaru, Kiba, and Tenten, that came with him and Hinata. They were chosen to be in charge of the Chunin exams during this season. "Will we be using this place for the second round again?" Naruto glanced over at Hinata. "Should we? It did create multiple challenges for us, so I think it'd be good to use it again." This was the place where true teamwork was being tested. Hinata looked around for a moment before nodding. "Okay, then. Write this place down as the official grounds for the second stage, but we should use a different part of the forest to ensure that there will be no cheats. Teams will also be changed to 4 instead of 3. She directed and looked at Tenten to make sure she recorded every decision that was being made at this moment. Naruto was quite impressed that she was able to come up and stand by her own choices. Normally, she would probably just wait for his decision and go along with whatever he wanted. And the finals. Hinata averted her attention back to him. "I've talked to the Cage and he has agreed to let us use the Sunagaku arena, so we'll go with that. Tamari and Kankuro are already doing preparations. We'll travel to Suna in 3 weeks to see if everything's done." Naruto turned to Shikamaru. "Make sure Tamari sends in the scroll with the information that we need within a week. I need to know the list of the names of both all the Junins that are participating and the team that they're leading." Shikamaru nodded and then let out a small sigh. Tamari was his fiancée now, and he knew it was going to be troublesome to run into her again after a whole month of not contacting her after she returned to Suna to help Gaara for a while. "Kiba, can you and Akamaru scan the region of this forest and then report back to me by tomorrow morning once you find a good area?" Be safe. There are unknown parts that have yet to be discovered in this forest, so retreat immediately if you feel as if there's a threat. Kiba bowed slightly. Yes, Hokage-sama. Naruto still wasn't used to that. Instead of just calling him Naruto, all of his friends referred to him as Hokage, which he knew was a sign of respect and because it would be dishonorable to call him anything otherwise, but he just needed time to get adjusted to it. We'll get things finalized by tomorrow night and report back to you as soon as possible. Tenten replied as she and the others bowed before dispersing back into the village. Hinata and Naruto stood there alone, in silence. You just keep surprising me. Naruto spoke up. Hinata was a bit confused. What do you mean? It's just that, you're still the Hinata that I've always known, but you're so much more outspoken and firm than before. It's different, but in a good way. Hinata felt her pride swell up at his compliment. He was always the only one who saw her achievements and her growth. In her younger days, when people would question why she was in love with the number one hyperactive knuckle-headed ninja, she would just think to herself, how could she not fall in love with him, when he's such an amazing person, inside and out? He was strong-willed, determined, he genuinely and sincerely cared for his friends, he would do anything to protect this village, and he never gave up on anything or anyone. And she proud to be married to such a man. Well, I am the wife of an Hokage now. It wouldn't be fitting if I was always hesitant and shy, would it? Naruto smiled at her response and then he realized that surprisingly, he really didn't have anything to do for the rest of the day. And the sun wasn't even setting yet. Are you busy after this? He asked. She thought for a few moments. She didn't have anything scheduled after coming to examine the grounds for the Chunin exam. The Konoha Council probably thought it would take far longer than just 1 or 2 hours, but she and Naruto had already finished in just 45 minutes. No, I'm free. Me too. Hinata blinked. But don't you have to sign documents? There was a pile of them on your desk earlier. I can always do those later. Didn't you tell me that you wanted to spend time together? Since we're both not busy right now, what did you have in mind? Hinata's heart fluttered because she didn't he would remember that. It made her happy that he'd rather be with her right now than to be in his office, and it gave her a small hope that it was possible for him to love her back. She's already accepted the idea that she was going to be in this marriage with an unrequited love for the rest of her life, but now, she might possibly have the happy ending that she's always wanted. Her eyes roamed around the forest and then an idea struck her. Naruto immediately blushed and turned around when she suddenly untied her mid-length lavender robe and let it drop to the ground. She was now left in black tights, a short tight-fitted black top, and she had bandages wrapped around her stomach so she wouldn't be showing too much skin. She laughed softly at his reaction and admired the fact that he still respected her enough to look away from her body even though they were now married. Naruto, I'm fully clothed. I was just thinking maybe we could spar. It's been a while since I've had a good fight. Well damn, she just keeps surprising him to no end. Out of all things, she wanted to spar. He expected her to say that she wanted to go on a nice walk together or do something more mellow. He turned around and yes, although she was fully clothed, he could still see her curves and her feminine figure because her outfit wasn't entirely that modest. She transitioned into a stance and then activated her Byakugan. Oh ho. So she was serious about this enough to even use her Byakugan. Naruto initially had no complaints. It's been a while since he's had a good fight also, and he's never trained or battled with her before, so it was going to be fun to find out what she's capable of. He smirked and then also let his Hokage robe drop to the ground, leaving him in a more comfortable outfit. He shifted his stance and then focused his attention on her. Come at me. What seemed like hours later, they were now laying on the ground opposite of each other, head to head, and was now staring up at the red-tainted sky. They were both panting and sweating with small scratches and bruises here and there from the intense sparring. Wow, Hinata. Naruto breathed out. You're super strong. My chakra feels completely drained right now. Hinata let out a small laugh. So are you. I barely managed to even get one punch at you. No way. You hit me so many times. But you blocked all of them. Because if I really let you hit me, it would have hurt like crazy. Naruto grinned and turned his head so he could look at her. She also smiled and turned her head, and when their eyes met, she was surprised that she didn't even feel nervous at the fact that they were so close to each other right now. It didn't feel awkward or nerve-wracking. Boldly, she reached over and gently patted away the sweat on his forehead. You've been working hard, haven't you? Yes, but so have you. Well, it's convenient that we coincidentally have this time to just relax like this. It feels nice. Naruto agreed. It was a really good stress reliever when he and Hinata sparred just now, and it was even more relaxing just laying like this with her. He never thought that after just merely 3 months, he would grow to be so comfortable with her. Even though they didn't see each other often, and there was still so much room to grow in their marriage, his perspective was slowly changing. Maybe he was going to get over Sakura faster than he thought. He still couldn't say that he loved Hinata, but he couldn't deny the fact that she's slowly paving a way to his heart. He reached up and took a hold of her hand that was patting his forehead, and he held it, gently running his thumb over her knuckles. During that fight with pain when I was pinned down, and I asked you why you would risk your life for me. He gazed into her pearl lavender eyes with a serious expression. Do you still mean those words that you confessed? Hinata's heart skipped a beat. She remembered that moment so clearly. It was the moment where she told him that she would throw away her life for him, to protect him, because she loved him. She didn't have anything to lose in that instant, and she felt like it was far too long since she's kept her true feelings hidden. It was just unexpected that he would bring that up right now. She never thought that he would be the first to bring up the topic of love in their marriage, nor even talk about it at all. Just because he was Naruto, and love wasn't something he knew on a comfortable level. But she answered him, because he was her husband, and she truly did love him. I meant it, and I always will. Things settled down a little more in the next couple of days. Everything came a whole lot easier to Naruto, and he was slowly getting the hang of his duties. He also had spare time to see Hinata here and there when he was out in the village. Whenever people saw them together, they would swoon over the couple. It was quite embarrassing, to be honest. He's never received that much attention for just being with a woman before. They also grew more comfortable with each other. They did get more physical, and it was normal for them to hold hands whenever they were together now. Naruto was reading the list of the people that were participating in the Chunin exams, but he was interrupted by a loud knock on the door. Come in, he replied and looked up. His eyes immediately lit up and he beamed at the sight of his pink-haired teammate. Hey Sakura, Hokage. Sakura smiled at him and made a small bow with her head. What are you doing here? She walked over to him and sat down across from him, looking at him with hopeful eyes. I wanted to come to ask you for permission to do something. I know you're busy and this is probably totally irrelevant to you right now, but you are Hokage and I really don't just want to leave the village without letting you know beforehand. Naruto's grin disappeared at that statement. Leave the village. Only one thought came to his mind: if she was going to ask permission to leave the village. Sasuke Uchiha. You want to find Sasuke? Sakura nodded. Yes. I know he wants his space and he's on this so-called journey for self-redemption, but I feel like it's only right if I'm there with him. Didn't he tell you that he would come back eventually to see you? Sakura sighed and she averted her eyes down to her lap. Well, yay, but she bit her bottom lip. I miss him. Naruto's heart ached at her sudden confession, but it was normal. He was used to it. He leaned back on his chair and tapped his pen on the desk, narrowing his eyes at her. That's not a good enough reason for me to let you go. Sakura's head jerked up. She was surprised at his answer. She was so sure that he would let her go. This was Naruto, her best friend, one of people who she loved the most, and he was the one person who would do anything for her and Sasuke because he cared about them so much. But you have to. Naruto raised an eyebrow. Why do I have to? Because it's Sasuke. We've tried so hard to bring him back and he's been gone on his journey for almost half a year now. It's only right to go and retrieve him. He's not a missing ninja, nor is he a threat to Konoha anymore. We have no purpose to bring him back. He clearly told us that he's leaving this time to atone for what he's done, and if he hasn't returned yet, then that means he isn't finished. You shouldn't go after him, Sakura, not this time. You should be having faith in him and you should be patiently waiting for him instead. Sakura sat speechless. Wow. During these 3 to 4 months that she hasn't seen him, did he really change so much? Well, he was Hokage now, so of course his perspective wouldn't be the same anymore. You really won't let me go see him? Naruto shook his head. What if I leave on my own accord? Sakura, as the leader of this village, I do not give you permission to go and find Sasuke, and as your friend, I kindly advise that you simply wait for him. I can't force you to stay, and there's no crime committed if you do choose to leave since you're already informing me right now, but I think the best decision is to stay and just be patient. Sakura huffed and crossed her arm. He'd be annoyed with me if I did go after him, huh? He's always annoyed, Sakura. I know, but if I do go after him, then maybe I can convince him to forgive himself and then he'll see that I was always right beside him and that I'm all he needs. Sakura. Naruto said her name sternly. He was a bit tired of this. Sure, he still loved her, but there was a certain breaking point to his own patience. My final say is no. She pouted and then closed her eyes in defeat. As much as she wanted to go after Sasuke, she couldn't go against Naruto. She respected him and if his final say was that he didn't give her permission to leave, then she had no choice but to just wait. Okay, I won't go, then. But, I also have another favor to ask. She once again looked at him and a smile graced her face. If you're free, spend some time with me. Ever since you became Hokage, I barely even see you anymore. When I do see you, you're always busy or you're with other people. So, please, like old times. Naruto couldn't help it. His gaze softened and he let out a sigh before checking his schedule. I actually have some spare time right now before I head over to discuss some things with Kakashi. Where did you wanna go? Ichiraku. I bet you haven't gone there for a while. Ha, she knew him well. Let's go, then. The shop felt smaller than usual. Maybe because it's been forever since he's eaten at Ichiraku or maybe because he was so used being in bigger buildings now. But it brought back good memories. Sue, how's the married life? I still can't believe it that you're married to Hinata. It's actually been really good. It's been a learning process for the both of us. Ah, come on, give me the details. Are you guys lovey-dovey with each other? Sakura laughed and teased him. Naruto grinned cheekily. Hey, well, I mean, we did get married unexpectedly, so we're still taking it slow. But you're married. Taking it slow doesn't make any sense. She rolled her eyes and just shook her head. Naruto shrugged. We both have no experience in our romantic lives, so we're still learning. It's fine. Sakura poked at her noodles and she stayed quiet for a while before speaking again. You do know that she's liked you for the longest time, right? Loved. He correct her. She's loved me for the longest time. Aha, so you do know. Or did you just recently figure it out? During my fight with Pain, she confessed it. She said she'd risk her life to protect me because she loves me. It was a big shock to me, really, because I finally knew why she was always blushing and fainting around me all those years. So, you feel the same way, right? It'd be kind of heartbreaking for her if her husband didn't love her back, you know. She nudged his elbow. Naruto stared down at his bowl of ramen. Loving someone in such a short amount just wasn't possible, at least, for him, it wasn't. And he couldn't possibly tell Sakura that his own feelings for her was the reason why he was having such a hard time. I can't say that I love her yet. I've always just seen her as a friend, and I never imagined that she would be the person who I'll be spending the rest of my life with. I understand. But you know, I don't think it'll be that hard for you to fall in love with her. She's really one of the best people I know and she's improved so much over the years. You'd be blind if you don't see the good potentials that she has. Naruto made a faint smile. I do see it. She's a really wonderful person, and in the few months that I've spent with her, I've learned things about her that I've never known before. To be honest, I thought that she wouldn't be able to handle being the wife in Hokage, but so far. He let out a quiet chuckle. So far, I feel like she's doing a better job than I am. Sakura couldn't help but stare in awe at his expression. She's never seen him with such a loving gaze before, and she thought that maybe he might already be falling for Hinata. He probably just didn't notice it yet. Well, are you done? We can go on a walk and you can tell me what you've been doing these past few months as Hokage. Sure. Naruto nodded as he paid for the both of them before they headed out. Hinata was on her way to meet with Kakashi. Being the former Hokage, Kakashi wanted to meet with them briefly to overview what they've been accomplishing so far, and he wanted to discuss the details of the Chunin exams. She wondered if Naruto was already there. The past few days have been a little more calm, and she was happy that her bond with Naruto was growing. She was getting used to holding hands with him, and lately, it seemed as if he was starting to return her feelings. She hoped every day that he would one day tell her that he loved her back. She hoped that one day, he would truly love her wholeheartedly and his feelings for Sakura would be gone. Ah, I should have prepared something for us to eat for lunch. She sighed. She loved that awe-struck face Naruto had on whenever she cooked something for him. The fact that she made him happy brought her joy. She passed by Ichiraku and she realized that she hasn't eaten there for the longest time. Naruto probably hasn't either, considering the fact that he was super busy with everything else. I should just buy some to go for him and Kakashi. She thought and smiled. When she walked closer, her eyes caught a glimpse of pink hair, and then she immediately stopped in her tracks when she noticed that it was Sakura, but the thing that caught her by surprise was that, sitting right beside Sakura, was Naruto. Her heart ached at the way he looked at Sakura and smiled so brightly. Of course, she remembered that life had its way of throwing curve balls at her. Just when she thought things were going so perfectly, everything had to come crashing down again in an instant. She then shook her head, quickly averted her eyes, and then continued on her way. She already made a promise to herself that she would be a loving wife to him, no matter if he ever came to love her back or not. But also above that, her life's duty was to Konoha and its people, and there were more important things to do than to just stand there pitifully and gaze at him like she always did. She was a leader of Konoha now. She didn't have time to let her personal feelings get in the way of her duties. Yo, Hinata, Kakashi greeted when she appeared in a puff of smoke in front of him. Too busy to walk here, huh? Well, it's easier to transport than to take my time walking. Hinata shrugged and laughed when she saw him reading his Ica Paradise book. It's been a while since she's seen him like this. How's it like, being the wife of an Hokage? It's okay. Kakashi raised an eyebrow. That's it. You're married to one of my star pupils, one of the greatest ninjas ever to be born, savior of Konoha and the most respected shinobi in all nations right now, not to mention he's the person that you've been admiring your whole life, and it's just okay. Well, geez. He didn't have to say it like that. Hinata sighed and pushed away the image of Naruto and Sakura together out of her mind. Well, we did get married unexpectedly, and undoubtedly, he's never had feelings for me before, so it's not really my ideal image of the married life that I wanted. I was also scared at first to handle so many responsibilities as his wife, but I'm actually doing fine right now. He's still the great person he is, and he does care for me, so things are not as hard as I imagined it would be. Better answer. Kakashi simply stated before turning his attention back to his book. Where is he, by the way? I expected you two to show up together. Ah, he's with Sakura right now. They're probably catching up with each other or something, so it'll probably be a while before he gets here. Kakashi glanced up at her, trying to read the emotions in her eyes. He was expecting to see a hint of jealousy or sadness, but there was nothing. Was it because she was suddenly good at masking her emotions, or was it because it really didn't bother her that Naruto and Sakura were together right now? Everyone practically knew that Naruto's been crushing on Sakura since the Genin days. And he probably still was, no matter if he was married to Hinata or not. Are you not even a bit jealous right now? Kakashi boldly asked. Hinata blinked. What? That fact that he's with Sakura right now, does it not bother you? Hinata simply narrowed her eyes at him. Well, what kind of wife wouldn't be bothered if their husband was with a former crush? But it doesn't matter to me right now because my feelings for him shouldn't be my priority when I'm here to discuss important things with you. Wow. That was totally not what he expected out of her. Quote. I apologize, Lady Hinata. I was out of line. He deemed it only right to suddenly address her with the correct honorifics now that she's earned his full respect as the lead kunoichi of the village. Speaking so firmly with authority was something that he never thought he'd see out of Hinata. On a more serious note then, he closed his book and stuffed it in his pocket. How are things going with the preparations for the Chunin exams? Hinata pulled out a scroll from her robe and handed it to him. These are the written records of how it'll be this season. Genin teams of 4 will be led by a Junin leader and we'll also be using the Forest of Death as the grounds for the second stage. However, we'll be using another area instead of the one we used last time. The finals will be held at the Sunagaku Arena. And I assume you've discussed this with the Cage. Has Gaara agreed to let you guys do it there? Yes, Naruto's already spoken with him. Temari and Kankuro are finished with preparations now and the list of genin that are participating have also been finalized. Kakashi smiled proudly at her from underneath his mask. Well done. The Chunin exams are set to happen next month, then. Hinata nodded. Okay, sounds good. You guys seem like you guys have everything under control. Makes it easier for me to not worry so much about him being Hokage now. He chuckled lightly. Should we wait until the Hokage gets here or will you just report this short meeting to him later? If you're busy, you can go. I can just tell him later. Alright, then. I'm looking forward to the prosperity you're going to bring to this village, Lady Hinata. Kakashi made a small bow and then waved goodbye before he disappeared in a puff of smoke. Hinata came home early because she had already finished everything in the evening. She glanced at the time and noticed it was only 10 p.m. She walked over to the kitchen, thinking that she should prepare a late dinner for Naruto, but then she remembered he already ate earlier with Sakura. Sighing, she instead walked back to the living room and pulled out a box of scrolls from underneath the coffee table. She inquired the scrolls from the Ninja Academy and from the Konoha Library during her training and she already memorized half the techniques listed. I should make some time to see if I can actually perform all these. She muttered to herself. If she did learn how to do all the various hand signs, genjutsu, ninjutsu, and taijutsu that she's memorized, she would no doubt be one of the most powerful kunoichis in Konoha. All she needed was time to practice, and free time was hard to get. Her thoughts were cut short when she felt Naruto's chakra near and then the door opened to reveal a tired-looking Naruto. He blinked in surprise when he saw her sitting down in front of the scrolls. I guess we're both home early, huh? How was your day, Hinata? He grinned at her before closing the door behind him. He walked over to her and sat down next to her, examining what she was doing. It was long. She replied bluntly and rolled up the scrolls, putting them back into the box again. Not taking notice of her short answer, he just continued talking. Oh yay. Did you get a chance to meet with Kakashi? I was busy so before I knew it, I was already late to meet him. Yes, I did. I already explained to him the details of Chunin exams, so everything's good so far. Ah, that's good. Thanks, Hinata. He leaned back on the foot of couch behind him and crossed his arms. What about you? How was your day? Hinata decided to ask. It was actually pretty good. One of the best days so far this week. Probably because he was with Sakura. She thought as she put the box of scrolls back under the coffee table. How was your lunch with Sakura? Naruto's eyes widened slightly. How did she know he was Sakura? Oh, it was fine. But how did you know I was with her? I passed by Ichiraku on my way to meet Kakashi and I saw you two there. I just didn't want to interrupt because you looked so happy with her and I told Kakashi to not wait for you since I knew you were going to take a while. Naruto immediately felt guilty. He didn't know how she was feeling right now because he couldn't even read her expression, but the way she said that made it seem like he blew her and Kakashi off just to spend time with Sakura. Which was evidently true, now that he really thought about it. Hinata was about to get up, but he quickly reached for her hand and stopped her. She looked at him, curious as to why he suddenly grabbed her like that. I'm sorry. He apologized yet again. He felt like he was always going to be apologizing to her in their marriage because he always seemed to hurt her without even realizing it. I neglected my duty as Hokage today and I just left you alone like that, so I'm sorry. If I'm hurting you, I'm sorry. I know my apologies probably sound stupid, but I'm so dense sometimes that I don't even take you into consideration when I'm doing things, so saying sorry is all I can say to you right now. I don't mean to intentionally hurt you like this. Hinata's eyes softened and she leaned in closer to him, placing her hand gently on top of his. I forgive you, so you don't have to apologize all the time. I know that Sakura is someone who's precious to you, so I don't hold that against you. And I don't require you to be a perfect husband because I know being Hokage is a huge responsibility. I can't always be a perfect wife to you, too, so it goes both ways. But you are perfect, Hinata. Hinata's heart fluttered. Did she really just hear him say that? You accept me so unconditionally, and I can't even do as much as return your feelings. Her heart ached for the second time that day. Why was he feeling guilty because he didn't love her back the way she loved him? Feelings weren't supposed to be forced, and if he didn't love her, then it was okay. She would wait. She had forever to wait because he was already her husband. This time, she acted upon her feelings. She figured that it was useless to hold back. Yes, she would wait, but at the same time, she would try her best to win his heart. Gathering up all the courage she had in her, she leaned forward and when her lips softly touched his, the world seemed to freeze right then and there for them. Naruto was sitting in his office the next morning, with his heart beating furiously over what happened yesterday night. It was so unexpected and so crazy and so unbelievable that she really kissed him. Hinata kissed him. My God. No matter how many times he said it over and over again in his head, he still couldn't get over it. That moment when she leaned forward and pressed her lips against his happened so quickly. He didn't even register what exactly happened until after she pulled away because his mind went completely blank. All he did was stare in shock when she told him that she would wait for his love as long as it would take, and then bid him good night before walking away to their room. He even slept on the couch because it was too nerve-wracking to be in the same room as her after that just happened. He left way early in the morning and now, sitting at his desk, he couldn't even concentrate on the pile of documents right in front of him. He reached up and placed his fingertips on his lips and he blushed when he could still clearly remember how warm and soft the feeling of her skin was against his. He then reminded himself that this was his wife who kissed him. That this was his wife, who only saw it fit and natural to kiss the husband that she loved, even when he didn't particularly love her back. And the strange thing was, as heart-pounding as that situation was, it didn't feel awkward when it happened. It was just so fast. The most intimate thing that they've done was hold hands, and now suddenly, they already had their first kiss as a married couple. Damn it, how the hell was he supposed to even face her now? He didn't want to feel tense around her, but now he couldn't help it. Where was this relationship going now that they've done that? Was it supposed to be normal to kiss each other now? Oh shit, he felt like having a heart attack just thinking that. Man, what the hell? He groaned and buried his face in the palm of his hands. He's never been on such an emotion roller coaster in his life just because of one woman. Not even Sakura made him experience the million things that he was feeling right now. It made him feel pathetic. He was Hokage of Konoha. He was the leader of the most powerful hidden village of the Land of Fire. He was the one who saved this village and won many victories over even the most legendary of shinobis. And yet, here he was, shaken at the thought of one kiss from his wife. And it wasn't that he hated it, no, it was quite the opposite. He actually wouldn't mind it if she did kiss him again. But maybe it was just the fact that she made the first move to do it. He always assumed that since he was the man, he undoubtedly would have to show her physical affection sooner or later, but she did it first. And because it was Hinata, the shy and ever so gentle Hinata that he's grown up with. The fact that she did such a bold move just nearly shattered him. Hinata, of course, was even more dazed. She was at the Ninja Academy again, reviewing over what each Junin was teaching in their classes, but her mind wandered off so often because of her actions yesterday night. After she had kissed him, she knew she was probably as red as a tomato when she finally entered their bedroom. She was glad that she was able to control her emotions and that she didn't blush in front of him. But she didn't know how to face him now. He was probably shocked, too, considering that fact that he didn't even come sleep in the bedroom and that he was already gone this morning. She did want to win his heart, though, and if that kiss got him to feel so flustered to the point where he found it nerve-wracking to even be in the same room as her, then she was making progress. She just hoped that it wouldn't make him suddenly shut her out or make him feel indifferent towards her. She was proud that she was even bold enough to make the first move like that. It definitely wasn't the way she imagined her first kiss to be, but it was close enough to make her content. Lady Hinata. She was torn out of her thoughts when someone called her name. She turned to see Tamari and Kankuro in front of her. Tamari, Kankuro. She smiled brightly at them as Tamari leaned in to give her a hug. Sorry we weren't there to witness the biggest wedding of shinobi history. You have no idea how popular you and Naruto are in Suna. My goodness, people are still talking about you two. So, where's the Hokage? We have yet to formally congratulate him, Yano. Kankuro grinned at her. He's at the Konoha headquarters right now. Are you guys here to report the finalization of the arena? They nodded. We also have a list of names from the genin in Suna who will be participating along with Konoha. Gaara insisted that we deliver it personally to the Hokage just for old time's sake. Alright, I'll take you guys to him. Naruto's ear perked up when he heard the doorknob open. He looked up and his heart nearly skipped a beat when he made eye contact with Hinata. As much as she wanted to look away from him because of her nervousness, she kept her gaze locked on his and forced a smile. Tamari and Kankuro are here. Naruto cleared his throat. Ah, of course. He managed to crack a smile at Tamari and Kankuro. Hey guys, long time no see. Tamari and Kankuro greeted him joyfully and congratulated him on being Hokage. Tamari handed over the scroll, but before they started to discuss things, Hinata interrupted for a slight moment. I'll be taking my leave. I have things to attend to, so I'll see you at home later, Naruto. Hinata replied and Naruto gave a slight nod before she left the room. Hinata sighed once she was out of his office. It was hard to breathe just looking at him. She did expect it to be a little tense between them because of her kiss, but she hoped the tension would ease soon. She just didn't know if it was something that they should be talking about, or if they were going to go on acting like it didn't happen. She didn't even know if she was going to have the courage to bring it up. She knew he needed time right now, and especially when she did that to him so unexpectedly. She realized that today she was pretty much free because there was nothing to review at the Ninja Academy and she could just finish reading the documents that came in for Naruto later. Then she remembered the box of scrolls at home and she guessed it was her lucky day. I guess I'll train for a bit. In matter of a few seconds, she transported herself home to get the scrolls in her weapon pouch, then she appeared in the training grounds away from the village. She let out a content sigh, happy that she finally had some free time to practice what she's learned so far. She knelt down and unrolled several scrolls on the ground, reading over them briefly before stepping back. Here goes. Within 5 hours, the training grounds had multiple trees down, craters in the ground, and the area she was in looked like a major battle just happened. Hinata stood in the center, now drenched in sweat and panting heavily. Though she was physically exhausted, she's never felt this good before and stared down proudly at her own hands. In a matter of just a few hours, she's already mastered half of the techniques that she memorized in the past 4 months. She vowed that she would become stronger, and now, She was happy that she was actually taking action to become a better kunoichi. If only father saw me right now, if only Neji was here to witness what I just did, they'd be proud of me. She thought to herself, and a smile graced her face. She wiped her damp forehead and picked up the scrolls and weapons around her. It'd be fun to use these against Naruto when we have time to spar again. The skills that she just learned wasn't necessarily life-threatening, and a lot of them required hand-to-hand combat, so it would be great to put them to use during a training session with someone else. I wonder if he's done with the preparations with Temari and Kankuro. I should make dinner for him in case he comes home early again. She muttered to herself before transporting herself back home. Once she was inside, she set the scrolls back in the box under the coffee table and walked over to the kitchen to prepare some food. In a way, being the wife of the Hokage was lonesome. She didn't have the luxury of going out with her friends whenever she wanted anymore, and she had certain responsibilities that bounded her now. It was indeed an honor to be someone who so many people respected, and she knew that even her father and Hanabi looked to her as someone who was more capable now, but sometimes that thought alone overwhelmed her. She was reminded by the fact that now the whole village would judge her every decision with Naruto, and that was a lot of stress as it is already. She let out a sigh and shook her head, clearing her thoughts. She then opened the fridge and resumed to cooking. Naruto bid goodbye to Temari and Kankuro before they both returned to Suna. He had insisted that they stayed the night since the way back was far, but they told him that they were busy and Gaara needed them back as soon as they were done in Konoha. He looked down at his desk and sighed in relief when he realized that everything for the Chunin exams was now finished. The list of genin participating from both Konoha and Suna was done, the Junin leaders were confirmed, the stage grounds were assembled and ready, and the contents of the exams were already written established by the Konoha Council. All that's left was to wait for the date to come. He grabbed the few documents that were left on his desk and signed them to finish off the day before he got up and stretched. He wondered what Hinata was doing right now. Was she still busy doing things, or was she already home? He realized that they were home a lot earlier together now, and then he suddenly blushed when he remembered that kiss last night. What was he going to say if he got home and she was there already? Were they supposed to talk about it or act like it never happened? Or was he just supposed to let it go and not even bring it up at all? What was there to talk about, anyways? He couldn't just ignore her or push her away. He wouldn't do that. He didn't want to hurt her. But at the same time, he felt like he was going to be nervous around her now, and he didn't know if he could look her in the eye without thinking about that kiss. Not that he was blaming her, but her actions put this weird and tense situation between them, and now it was just awkward. But then again, they were married. It shouldn't be awkward. They would have to learn how to be affectionate towards each other eventually. He just shook his head and sighed, whatever will happen will happen. If he got home and Hinata acted normal, he would let it go. But if it came up, they would have to eventually talk about it, and he had to be prepared for that. Just as he was about to push in his chair and turn off the lights, someone knocked on the door. Geez. It was already late and just wanted to rest right now. Why were people still requesting his presence? Come in. He sighed and sat back down. To his surprise, the door opened to reveal none other than Sasuke Uchiha. Yo! Naruto grinned at the sight of his best friend. Sasuke just smirked and then walked over to him after closing the door. Wow! You look different, your hair's down. Naruto laughed as he took a good look at his ex-teammate who he hasn't seen in nearly half a year. So do you, Hokage. Naruto was a bit shocked when Sasuke made a small bow. He never thought that Sasuke Uchiha, the one person who rivaled and challenged him his whole life, the one person that would never kneel to anyone, would bow in respect to him. It almost made him cry, really. Well damn, this is new, huh? He chuckled. It's only right that I pay my respects to my friend who's achieved his dream. I left right after the wedding ceremony, so I didn't even formally congratulate you yet. Sasuke lifted his head again. Anyways, I've returned. It was simple, it was short. But that statement alone made Naruto swell up with a joy and relief that he hasn't felt in years. For good. Sasuke smirked again and nodded. I found what I was looking for on my journey and I figured it was the right thing to return here, to return home. I wanted to meet you personally and tell you before I settle down again. Naruto stared at him proudly and then reached out his hand. If Sasuke felt like it was now the time to finally just settle down in Konoha and live a life with the people who had accepted him as he was from the start, he certainly didn't have anything against that. It was going to be different with him back in the village, but it was a good different. Well, I have no objections to that. Welcome home, Sasuke. Sasuke also reached out his arm and they shook hands, acknowledging each other's pride of finally achieving their goals. Naruto hesitated a bit to ask the question that's been lingering in his mind and because it was gonna slightly hurt him to say it, but he figured, he really had nothing to lose now. Sue, when are you gonna ask Sakura to marry you? Hinata took a sip of the soup and then turned off the fire when she was content with the taste. Okay. She took out 2 plates and 2 bowls, setting them at both ends of the table. She then carried the small pot of soup and the sushi over to the table. Her eyes glanced over to the time. 10 o'clock. He should be coming home, soon. She sat down at her end of the table and stared blankly at the food she made. She still didn't know how things were going to be like once he was here. Was he just going to smile at her and greet her like he normally would? Or would he look at her strangely and stay quiet for the rest of the night? Her heart pounded when she heard the door unlock and open. She slowly turned and sure enough, there he was. Naruto didn't even look at her yet. He took off his Hokage hat and slipped off his robe, hanging them by the door. When he finally glanced up at her, he pushed away his nervousness and managed to smile at her. Hey, Hinata, you already cooked dinner. Yay. I just got done cooking, so the food's still hot. Come eat and then we can go to bed. Hinata also managed to flash a smile at him. He sat down across from her and picked up the chopsticks. So how was your day? Hinata asked quietly. It was good. The preparations are all done for the Chunin exams and I finished signing the documents, so I should be able to have some free time here and there now. Ah, that's good, then. Oh, and Sasuke's back, for good now. He came by my office earlier and told me that he'll settle down in Konoha now. Really? That's great. There's nothing to worry about now and you guys don't have to constantly wait for him anymore. She was truly happy for him and she was happy that Sasuke was back now. She and Naruto were talking. It was normal. But the conversation was short, and that bothered her. She didn't even know what to ask him anymore, and she didn't have anything else to say about Sasuke, so she just stayed quiet and picked up her chopsticks. To be honest, she wasn't even that hungry. She glanced over at Naruto again and noticed he wasn't eating either. He was just poking around at the sushi and he didn't even get any of the soup yet. If you're not hungry or you're too tired, you can just go rest. She replied before getting up. I'm actually not that hungry, too, so. I'll clean up. She picked up her own plate and utensils and walked back over to the kitchen cabinets to put them away. Naruto just sat quietly as she came back to get his plate and the rest of the food on the table. After covering the food up, she turned back around and raised an eyebrow, wondering why he was still just sitting there. Are you waiting for me? Ah, yay. Naruto finally spoke and then stood up. Sorry, you cooked dinner and everything. I already told you to stop apologizing, Naruto. She smiled reassuringly and walked over to him. It's okay, it's not a big deal. Let's just go to bed, now, okay. She turned and was about to walk to the bedroom first, but he slowly reached for her and gently took a hold of her hand. She turned back to face him and once again blinked curiously. Is something that matter? Although he was thinking a million things right now, he just stared at her face with a blank expression. Though he was happy that Sasuke was back for good now, and he felt like he should be rejoicing, right now, all he could think of was her. She was standing right here in front of him, yet his mind was filled with her. He once again reminded himself that this was his wife. Hinata Hyuga was his wife, and she was willing to wait for him, no matter how long it would take. Naruto. She narrowed her eyes. Why wasn't he answering her and why did he seem so distant? I need to clear something out of my head. Hinata didn't quite get what he was saying. Okay. And what? Her sentence was cut short when he suddenly pulled her closer. She blushed when she realized how close he was. Naru. Her heart nearly stopped and her knees felt weak when he crashed his lips on hers. Whoa. Whoa. Whoa whoa. What the hell? That happened out of nowhere. Naruto was kissing her. Holy shit, was this really happening right now? The love of her life, the person who she thought would never do such affectionate things like this, is actually kissing her. Her eyes were widened in shock but slowly, she let them flutter closed as they stayed like that for a while longer. He pulled away and she thought he was done, but she nearly gasped when he leaned in once again, capturing her mouth with his. He was kissing her so passionately that she thought she was going to faint at any moment now. His hand that wasn't holding her came up to cup her face and he kissed her even deeper. She never imagined her first kiss from him to be so ravenous. It was heart-pounding and exciting, and it left her lightheaded and breathless, literally. He finally broke away, panting. Geez, Hinata. He caressed her cheek with his thumb and stared into her dazed pearl eyes. How can you just kiss me and then not expect me to be flustered for the whole day? I'm sorry. She didn't know what to say. She was utterly speechless right now. She didn't think that one small kiss had such an effect on him that he'd be like this, it was like he just lost control. He gazed at her for a moment longer before he smiled softly at her. You're my wife, Hinata. And you don't have to apologize for treating me like a wife would treat her husband, and I promise you. Hinata blushed when he leaned in and gave her a soft peck on the lips. I'll give you the proper answer to your feelings when the time comes. He couldn't find any reasoning as to why he kissed her like that. He just thought that since she kissed him first, the only solution to stop his nervousness was to kiss her back. And surprisingly, it worked. After that, the next couple of weeks were strange. Naruto was slowly learning things about her when he spent time with her and he came to realize that he very much liked it when he was together with her. He couldn't deny the fact that she was beautiful. So many times when he was with her, his heart would skip a beat at the sound of her laughter or at the sight of her warm smile. So many times, he would have the urge to just lean in and kiss her on a whim. And so many times, he would find himself desiring her like a man would desire a woman. It was very embarrassing for him to admit it to himself that he was so attracted to her like this. It was weird because he's never seen her in this way until now, and he regretted that he never saw how beautiful of a person she was. He woke up on this particular day to find her gazing lovingly at him and for the first time, he felt butterflies in his stomach for someone other than Sakura. Good morning. She greeted and smiled at him. Morning. Naruto smiled back at her. He then raised his arm up and gently caressed the side of her cheek. It was rare that she was awake before him. Usually, he was the first one up and he was already gone out the door by the crack of dawn. It was nice to wake up together like this. Do you have time to eat breakfast? I can cook something for you really quick before you go. Hinata was about to get up, but he reached for her hand and pulled her back down. Stay. Just for little bit, let's stay like this. Naruto pulled her closer to him and embraced her tightly. Hinata felt herself blushing. It was the first time that he's held her so intimately like this. Ever since that kiss he gave her, he's been showering her with affections a lot more. Not that she minded, really. She closed her eyes and leaned on his chest, savoring the warmth of his arms around her. It felt so good to be in the embrace of the man she loved. Love you, she muttered quietly against his shirt. She's been confessing that openly to him lately, too. She figured she didn't have anything to lose and there was nothing wrong with telling her husband that she loved him. Naruto's never had someone say that to him before. He wasn't used to her confessing that so openly to him, and it wasn't that he hated hearing it, because it felt amazing to have someone truly love him, but he just always felt bad whenever she said it. Because he knew he still couldn't say it back, yet. Unfortunately, Their morning was cut short because Naruto suddenly remembered they were supposed to be traveling to Suna for the finals of the Chunin exams. Kakashi, along with Tenten, Shikamaru, and Kiba each already led two groups of genin teams to Suna 2 days earlier. The Konoha Council and some of the village elders also already left the previous day. Everyone was pretty much waiting for Naruto and Hinata's arrival. It took about 3 days to get to Suna from Konoha for the average ninja, but for Naruto and Hinata, it was probably only going to take a day and a half. Make sure to bring a water bag or a gourd. We need to keep hydrated. Naruto reminded her as he slipped on his orange Hokage robe. Yes, I already have a water gourd in my weapon pouch. Hinata nodded. Naruto watched as she slipped on her lavender robe and tied back her long hair. Ah, geez, why was it that she looked so graceful doing something as simple as that? Hinata glanced up and she blinked curiously at the way he was gazing at her. What's wrong? Naruto simply smiled at her and shook his head. Nothing. Hinata raised an eyebrow, but she didn't question him any further. She still felt his eyes on her as she ran her fingers through her hair, letting loose a few strands of her bangs to frame her face. She pulled down the hair tie so that her ponytail wasn't so tight and then tightened her robe around her feminine curves. Naruto suddenly felt his pride swell up. Hinata Hyuga, the Byakugan princess, the ever so gentle and kind-hearted woman he knew growing up, was his wife. Unlike the first few events leading up to their marriage when he felt so doubtful and strange about being married to her, he was now content and overjoyed that someone who practically looked like a goddess and had such a personality of a virtuous woman was his spouse. She was all his. He was torn out of his thoughts and he nearly jumped when someone suddenly knocked on their door. Everyone should be on their way to Suna right now. Who could it be? Hinata wondered as she walked over and opened the door. Much to their surprise, the door opened to reveal none other than Sasuke and Sakura. Hokage. Lady Hinata. Sakura flashed a smile at them as she and Sasuke both made a small bow to them. What are you guys still doing here? I assumed you two already left with the rest of the Junin to Suna. Though Naruto was never going to admit it, it bothered him seeing them together. He just wasn't really well adjusted to the fact that they were officially a real couple now. Well, we wanted to go with you guys. Sakura turned so that they could see the small bag that she packed. Sasuke wanted to leave a few days ago with the others, but I convinced him to stay. Everyone left in groups, so I just thought it'd be good for you guys to have some company instead of traveling there alone. That's so kind of you. That's great, right, Naruto? It's been a while since we've all spent some time together anyways, Hinata happily replied as she walked out the door to stand beside them. Aha, yay, it'll be awesome. Naruto rarely faked his smiles, but he did this time. It was going to be difficult for him to be traveling with both the wife he was trying to figure out his feelings for and with his first love and best friend, who were now dating. He let out a small sigh as he walked out to join them and locked the door behind him as they all dashed out of the Konoha headquarters. God, how he hated the way to Suna. As soon as they were nearing the border of the land of fire and approaching the land of wind, it was nothing but desert for miles ahead. It wasn't any better that they were sprinting at a vigorous speed in the scorching heat, too. Naruto glanced over at Sakura and noticed sweat dripping down the side of her cheeks. You tired? We can rest for a bit. Sasuke took notice of this and then he took a hold of Sakura's hand, slowing her down. We'll take a break. We've been running for a few hours now. He insisted as they all slowed and then stopped running. Haha. Sorry guys, I'm not used to this heat. Sakura apologized as she drank from the water gourd that Sasuke offered to her. Naruto couldn't pull his gaze away from them. To see Sasuke care for her like this and to see them casually holding hands or just touching in general was so different. He knew couldn't do anything about it no matter how much it hurt. She was so happy now and Sasuke finally, after so many years of rejecting and even coming close to killing her, accepted her feelings. Naruto could even see a hint of affection and warmth in his eyes whenever he was with Sakura. His thoughts vanished when he felt something cool on his skin. He suddenly turned his attention to Hinata, who was beside him, and noticed that she had a cool and damp handkerchief in her hand, patting away the sweat on his forehead. Here, drink some. Hinata took out a gourd of water and handed it towards him. Naruto immediately felt that horrible guilt hit the bottom of his stomach again. Here he was, looking longingly at Sakura and even suggested that they rested for her sake, that he didn't even pay attention to his own wife. His heart ached ever so slightly when he noticed how flushed her cheeks were from the heat, how parched her lips looked, and how her bangs now stuck to the sides of her cheeks. Despite her exhausted state, she even wiped away his sweat and offered water to him first before caring about herself. He took a hold of her hand that was patting his forehead and lowered it down. "I'm sorry," he muttered quietly. Gosh, he didn't know how many times he was going to say that to her. He was probably going to apologize to her his whole life. "I told you to stop apologizing, Naruto. She's someone precious to you, so of course you'd care for her well-being." Damn it. Why did she see through him so easily? He hated it that she knew that he still had these lingering feelings for Sakura and yet, she was so patient about it. The fact that she simply smiled so lovingly at him only made him feel worse. Hinata wasn't oblivious to it. Of course she saw the hurt in his eyes when Sasuke and Sakura stood together at their door earlier. Of course she noticed his glances at Sakura for the past 3 hours of travel. Of course she knew the discomfort in his heart when he saw Sasuke caring for Sakura. And of course, her own heart felt like it broke into pieces over and over again. But she pushed her painful feelings away and stayed strong. She would still smile at him, care for him, worry about him, and she would still love him no matter how much he may still love Sakura. Her eyes widened and her heart pounded furiously when he suddenly leaned in and placed a quick and gentle kiss on her parched lips. That was the second kiss she's ever received from him. She blushed when she heard a giggle from Sakura and saw Sasuke smirk. Naruto didn't even register what he just did and he also blushed faintly when he realized he just kissed Hinata in front of them. He just suddenly wanted to provide some sort of comfort for her because he knew he was hurting her. Naturally, his eyes traveled down to her lips and before he knew it, he just did it on impulse. "Sorry, it's just that." Sakura let out a small laugh before she continued. "I'm just kinda happy right now. That was cute. I didn't think I would ever see you two do that." Sasuke added in, keeping the smirk evident on his face. Their comments only made the couple feel more embarrassed. What? It's normal for married couples to do things like that, you know. Naruto quickly defended. "I know, it's just that, it's so refreshing to see you actually be affectionate towards her after all these years." Sakura beamed happily at them. "I'm just glad to see you two like this. And we're glad to see you and Sasuke together, too." Hinata replied as she smiled at them. "I know, right? I finally got him after all my hard work." Sakura giggled as she linked her arms with Sasuke. Hinata turned her attention to Naruto, to see if there was any hint of jealousy in his eyes seeing them like that, but she was taken by surprise when she saw that he was gazing at her instead. Her heart fluttered when he took the handkerchief out of her hand and gently patted away the sweat on her forehead just like she did to him earlier. "Geez, Hinata, how can you just worry about me first when you're obviously tired, too?" "I'm okay, Naruto." Hinata quickly reassured him and she was happy that he genuinely cared for her. Naruto's eyes once again trailed down to her lips, but he restrained himself this time. He didn't know why everything about her was so enticing. Just a few moments ago, all he was thinking about was Sakura, and now, to be honest, he didn't even care that Sasuke and Sakura was there with them. All he saw, all he thought about at this moment, was Hinata. Much to their relief, they finally reached the river after a whole day of running in the heat. "Finally!" Naruto exclaimed as he ran first to the water and bent down to wet his face. "Ah, so refreshing." Hinata followed closely after, refilling her water gourd. "The sun is already setting so we should rest here for tonight. It's a good thing that there are a few trees here. Sasuke and I will gather some wood for fire." "It's okay, I can do it." Naruto butted in. You guys rest and set up for the night. I'll go get wood and see if I can catch something for us to eat down the river. I'll come with you, too. Hinata replied as she finished filling her gourd and stuffed it back in her weapon couch. Especially you, Hinata. You need to rest. I'm fine. Hinata reassured him. Naruto just shook his head. I want you to stay here. Hinata wanted to help. She wasn't really all that tired anymore and she wanted to do something more productive than to just set up their sleeping futons. But, can't I help? Naruto was about to oppose, but he saw a hint of disappointment in her expression and then he let out a small sigh before he reached out his hand to her. Fine, let's go. Hinata's eyes immediately lit up and she held his hand before they both dashed off. Sakura and Sasuke were left standing there in silence. Sasuke glanced at her, noticing the obvious pout on her face. What? Why can't we be cute like them? Sasuke almost laughed. Almost. Naruto used Shadow Clone Jutsu to scatter around the area to bring wood. While his clones were busy with that, he and Hinata walked further downstream to the shallow parts of the river to see if there were any fishes. Hinata activated her Byakugan and scanned the water. There's a bunch of fishes here. She told him. Awesome. Let's. He stopped and his eyes widened when Hinata suddenly did a few hand signs and shot out chakra that looked like sharp needles from her palm into a specific spot in the water. Within seconds, several fishes floated up the surface. Whoa. He nearly gaped. How'd you do that? It's just something simple I recently learned from the scrolls one got from the Ninja Academy. Hinata replied as she walked into the river and pulled out a string from her weapon pouch, tying together the fishes. Naruto realized in that moment that there was still so much he didn't know about her. He didn't know what she was capable of, how strong she truly was as a kunoichi, and he honestly didn't even know something as simple as her favorite color. He walked over to her and she blinked curiously at him when he took the fishes from her hand and gently threw them near the shore. What's wrong? Did you want to catch more? No. Naruto then took a few steps back from her and she was surprised when he suddenly took off his Hokage hat and his robe and also threw it on the shore. Show me what you've learned so far. Really? Can I? Hinata smiled hopefully at him. Don't hold back. Naruto nodded at her as he shifted into a fighting stance. Hinata was excited. They were surrounded by water, too, so she'll have a chance to use the water techniques that she learned. And it was fun sparring with him. He didn't go easy on her, which helped her to fight to her full potential. She didn't waste any time and dashed towards him. Then in a blink of an eye, she disappeared and reappeared behind him, attempting to attack him from behind. Naruto immediately ducked and then dodged her hit. He remembered that she had quick reflexes, so he skillfully blocked her when she did a quick backflip and tried to strike at his chest. He was taken by surprise when she swiftly did a circular hand motion and pushed harshly against him, causing him to stumble back. Ah! He forgot she was also physically stronger now. Then out of nowhere, one of his clones appeared behind her, hitting a pressure point on her neck. Hinata lightly gasped at the sudden hit, but she quickly whispered a release jutsu to free herself before her body was paralyzed and then shot out a chakra needle at the clone. Naruto was quite impressed at how quickly she reacted to his attack. It seemed like she was more aware and way more skilled than during their last sparring. He immediately jumped up when she performed some hand signs and pressed her palm against the surface of the water, making the river split right towards him. That's new, he thought as he landed back down and then dashed towards her. She quickly shifted her shoulder away before he could hit her and then dipped her fingers into the water. His eyes averted to her hand and he narrowed his eyes when she gracefully spun around and then pointed a finger at him. He winced when he felt a sudden sharp pain on his left arm and realized that when she pointed at him, she had shot out water droplets at a lightning speed. He frowned and then focused his attention back on her. She ran towards him and twisted around to throw a kick at him, but he blocked her kick with his own leg. Her Byakugan followed his every movement as they engaged in close hand-to-hand combat. She managed to block and push back every punch and hit he threw at her, but as fast she tried to counterattack, he also managed to avoid hits from her. The water around them rippled and splashed at their every move. By the time they stumbled back from each other, they were both drenching wet. Hinata panted heavily and gazed intensely at him. Naruto matched her glare with his own serious expression. In a blink of an eye, they both ran towards each other. Naruto realized she was aiming for another strike to his chest as he observed the way her arms slightly pulled back to gather enough power to project to her palm. He simply smirked, and right when she was close enough to hit him, he swiftly dodged her attack. She gasped when she felt his strong arms wrap around her waist and then suddenly felt him flip her to the ground. She winced at the pain that rippled through her backside as she harshly came in contact with the water and hit the ground below. Naruto saw her expression and then he quickly loosened his hold on her body. Sorry. I used a bit too much force. It's fine. Hinata reassured him as she slowly sat up. It was a good thing they weren't too deep in the water or she would have been drowning when he pummeled her down like that. Naruto narrowed his eyes and he reached towards her, brushing away her wet hair from her face. You sure? I don't want to give you any serious injuries. I got too carried away. You're really good, Hinata. She smiled warmly at him, thankful that he praised her for her growth. I'm okay, promise. He let out a small sigh of relief and his eyes softened at her. Truth be told, he admired her. She was gentle and kind-spirited, yet strong-willed and motivated. He was more and more attracted to her the more he knew her. Hinata blushed and her heart ached slightly at the way he was gazing at her. The way he was looking at her right now was the same way he looked at Sakura. Did that mean he was falling for her, too? Or was she simply misinterpreting it? Naruto. She called his name quietly and then shivered at his gentle touch. His hand that brushed away her hair now came upon her cheek and her heart nearly skipped a beat when she felt his thumb brush across her lower lip. Why was he gazing at her so longingly like that? Why was he touching her so gently as if she was something fragile and precious? It made her confused. She didn't know whether or not she should get her hopes up. Maybe he was doing this just in the spur of the moment and he wasn't even realizing it. She reached up and placed her hand on his, pulling it away from her face. Let's go back. Sasuke and Sakura are probably hungry by now. We're all wet, too, so we should get back and get the fire started quickly. Naruto finally looked away from her and then he softly cleared his throat. Yay. Let's go. After setting up the fire, they placed the fishes over it to cook. Naruto didn't know how Gaara lived in this insane weather. In the daytime, it was crazy hot, and at night, it was freezing cold. Maybe it was a bad idea to spar in the river earlier. You guys better not catch a cold. Sakura sighed as she shook her head at them. Ahaha, we forgot how cold it gets at night. Naruto grinned cheekily as he scooted closer to the fire to warm himself. We packed 2 blankets. We'll share one and you two can have this one. Sasuke replied as he pulled out 2 blankets from Sakura's bag and tossed one over to Naruto. Awesome. Thanks. Naruto kept his attention on them. He watched as Sasuke sat down next to Sakura and, much to his surprise, embraced Sakura with the blanket. He never thought he would see Sasuke embrace a woman, ever. He finally forced himself to look away when Sakura smiled lovingly at Sasuke and leaned closer to him. Hinata glanced at him and she once again noticed that expression. Was it really impossible to fully have his heart? When he was gazing longingly at her earlier, really just because it was in the spur of the moment. Whenever he looked at Sasuke and Sakura, she knew he wished that he was in Sasuke's place right now, holding Sakura in his arms. But no. He was married to her. And though he was slowly letting her in his heart, she still knew for a fact that she might never be able to compare to how much Sakura meant to him. She let out a small sigh and she could see her own breath in the air. Her lips slightly trembled at how cold it was and then she pulled her legs up and hugged herself. Her damp clothes weren't really helping, either. Naruto averted his eyes to Hinata and he felt bad when he saw that she was huddled up and hugging herself. Shit, he did it again. He shouldn't be busy worrying over another man's woman when he should be worrying about his own wife. He unfolded the blanket and then scooted closer to her, pulling the blanket over her small body. Sorry. Don't. Hinata suddenly cut him off. Naruto, stop apologizing. Naruto was about to say sorry again, but he restrained himself. Hinata boldly leaned over, linking her arm with his, and then laid her head on his shoulders. He smiled softly at her gesture and then intertwined his fingers with hers. Yay, he definitely shouldn't be jealous of Sasuke and Sakura anymore. Gaara tapped his pen on the desk repeatedly. They should be here already. The Chunin exam finals are happening this evening and Naruto told me he'd be here by noon today. Temari rolled her eyes at how impatient he was. It's a long travel here, Gaara. I bet they just rested for the night so they should be on their way now, and it's just 10 a.m., geez. Gaara just let out a sigh and then stayed quiet. He was just a bit overstressed. It was the first time in his role as Hokage that Suna held such a big event like this, so the preparations he had to do were overwhelming. The Chunin exam itself brought back bad memories for him. Other than that, he was interested to see the skills of the young ninjas that made it to the final round. Each generation had their fair shares of ninjas who stood out among the others. Aren't you excited? It'll be your first time seeing Naruto and Hinata as a couple. Everyone's been talking about it here and in Konoha. Temari grinned. Ah. Gaara was happy for them. He did want to attend the marriage ceremony, but he had too much duties in Suna to make it. He felt much relief when there was a knock on the door. Temari walked over to open it and Naruto and Hinata walked in, followed by Sasuke and Sakura. Yo. Naruto grinned. I hope your travel here wasn't too harsh. Gaara got up and shook hands with him. Oh, don't even get me started. Naruto chuckled. So, how are things gonna go today? The finals will start within 3 hours. People from both Suna and Konoha are already filling up the arena. That's good. I'm excited to see who will win. It's always exciting to see what skills the young ones have. Gaara nodded then walked past them, leading them out of his office. In the meantime, I have lunch prepared. They followed him as he walked through the Sunagaku headquarters until they stopped in front of 2 sliding doors. Naruto's eyes sparkled when Gaara slid the door open to reveal a large room with a table filled with mounts and mounts of food. I will have to head over to the arena first to tend to some things. You guys enjoy. Gaara replied before he and Naruto bowed to each other. All right, see you in a bit. Naruto once again turned his attention to the table and he was the first to sit down. Come on, Hinata. This almost looks as good as your cooking. Hinata laughed softly at him as he took a hold of her hand and pulled her down to sit with him. Sasuke and Sakura took their seats on the opposite side. I'm surprised they're able to get all these foods in the middle of the desert like this. Well, we do help. We export a lot of resources to Suna as their trade partner. Hinata replied, recalling all of the documents she read about the trade system in Konoha. Awa, I forget that you're an expert at knowing Konoha's economy now. Sakura chuckled. Glad to know we're being led by a woman who's intelligent like you, Hinata. Hinata smiled at the comment and she made a small bow to thank Sakura. Naruto glanced over at Hinata, proud that she was both smart and humble. This time, before he dug into the food shamelessly like he always does, he grabbed his chopsticks and picked up some sushi along with a piece of salmon and placed it nicely on the plate in front of her. Hinata blinked and stared at him in surprise. He usually never waited for her when there was food on the table, nor did he ever make sure there was food in her own plate before he ate first. He simply smiled at her and her heart skipped a beat when she realized he was gazing at her with that affectionate expression again. Eat lots, okay. It's gonna be a long day. Sakura stared in awe at them and she nudged her elbow at Sasuke, pouting again. See, why can't we be cute like them? After the meal, they all left the Sunagaku headquarters and headed towards the arena. Once they entered in, Naruto's eyes widened at the crowd. There seemed to be a lot more people in the audience than the previous years. Whoa, you weren't kidding when you said the arena was already filling up. He chuckled as he took his seat next to Gaara. Hinata sat down next to him and then Sasuke and Sakura sat down behind the couple. Ah, probably because of you. Gaara shrugged. Why me? Well, from what I heard from Tamari, you and Hinata are a pretty hot topic right now. I'm guessing a bunch of my own people here in Suna are here early to witness you two together before the Chunin exam finals even start. Really? But, it's been nearly 5 months since our wedding. Hinata was astonished that they were still popular. Sure, she expected the attention when they first got married, but now when it's almost been half a year since the ceremony, people were still hyped up about it. Her eyes roamed the crowd and she suddenly felt self-conscious when she realized almost everyone's eyes were looking at her direction. Naruto was also a bit shocked. He was taken back by surprise when he also realized the sudden attention from the crowd. Gaara merely smirked and then got up, walking over to the microphone stand in the middle of the balcony that extended out into the opening. I am honored that during this season of the Chunin exams, Konohagakure has requested to use our arena for the finals. It is a pleasure to be able to host such an important event to promote Genin into Chunin and to see what skills each individual ninja possesses. I also proudly welcome my good friend to Suna. He turned slightly to Naruto and Hinata, urging them to stand up. Naruto held Hinata's hand as they both stood up for the crowd. People of Suna, please warmly welcome the Hokage and his wife, Naruto and Hinata Uzumaki. Like the day of their wedding, the crowd roared at the mention of their names. Ha ha ha, we're like a famous couple or something. Naruto chuckled lightly to Hinata. Well, I feel like they're excited to see you more than me. After all, you did save Konoha. You're a hero to all the shinobi nations and you will forever be a legend to both Konoha and these people. Hinata lightly squeezed his hand and smiled at him. Naruto didn't know how she did that. Whenever he was with her, she always encouraged him and made him feel like he was the most beloved person in the world. She never once doubted his ability nor his dreams, and right now, she was standing next to him proudly as his wife. She was willing to be by his side and bear both the burdens and the pride that came along with being an Hokage. Then a thought struck him and he suddenly changed his perspective. If he had married Sakura instead, he knew for a fact that she wouldn't be as patient and as gentle as Hinata was. She wouldn't gaze at him like he was the most precious person to her, like Hinata did. She wouldn't be willing to give her heart to him and love him wholeheartedly like Hinata did. No, she wouldn't be half the woman that Hinata was. And it wasn't that he was degrading or putting her down or anything like that, because above all, Sakura was still one of his best friends, regardless if he had ever loved her or not. It was just that now that he really thought about it, there was no other woman who came in mind that could beat Hinata. Not even Sakura. No one could match Hinata's beauty, her kind and warm personality, her persevering strength, and her unwavering faith in the people who she held precious to her heart. And then it suddenly hit him, that he might possibly come to love Hinata more than he ever loved anyone else. Everyone from Konoha rested that night in Suna before they headed back. Naruto was sitting on the roof of the Sunagakure headquarters, staring up at the moon. Seeing the moon so clearly like this was probably the only thing he liked about Suna. Earlier, everyone was amazed at the outcomes of the tournament. Naruto himself was still surprised and quite proud that so many young ninjas from Konoha won. He was even more amazed at how skilled they were. Wasn't that amazing earlier? Naruto turned around and smiled at the sight of his beautiful wife. Right. I'm so glad the next generation has a handful of capable ninjas. It makes me relieved for the future of Konoha. Hinata walked over to him and stood by him, also admiring the full moon. Me, too. Knowing that all those young ninjas will be under your leadership for the next years to come makes me content. I really believe that you will make Konoha a strong village. Gosh, she just always knew what to say to make him happy. He moved closer to her and gently wrapped his arms around her, giving her a warm hug. Hinata relaxed in his embrace, hugging him back, and then leaned her head on his chest. She was so glad that he wasn't afraid to show her affection like this. What's even better, is that you'll be right beside me leading the next generation. I wouldn't be able to do this all on my own. Naruto muttered softly. Hinata blushed faintly at his statement and she couldn't help but smile. It seemed like he was finally noticing her. After so many years, he was actually taking interest in her. It felt amazing to know that he at least confessed that he wanted her by his side. Quote. I love you, Naruto. Unlike the many times when he felt guilty whenever she said that to him, this time, he didn't particularly feel bad or have any sense of pity, which was little strange. The next morning, they traveled in one big group instead of going separate this time. Naruto, along with the elders and Konoha council, led the way while the rest of the people from Konoha followed closely behind. Naruto checked behind him once in a while to see if Hinata looked okay. He was surprised to see her alongside Kiba, laughing and smiling, and though he knew they were just close friends, for some strange reason, it just felt irritating to see them together. He definitely couldn't just go over and interrupt them because he was leading everyone. And frankly, it'd be rude. It's okay for her to talk to another guy if he's just a friend. He let out a sigh and calmed himself down. Tisk, I'm kinda jealous now, yeah, no. Kiba smirked. Of what? Hinata blinked. Of Naruto, of course. Why? Because he's Hokage. No, because he has you. Hinata blushed. That was different, coming from Kiba. You're jealous because of that? Well, yay. You're my best friend, and you've grown into such a beautiful woman. You probably don't even know how many Konoha men are jealous of Naruto because he has you. Kiba chuckled. That was surprising. Men actually desired her. She never even noticed it. Her eyes glanced up and her attention landed on Naruto's broad back. Well, to be honest, even if there were men who desired her, it didn't really matter to her. She was a married woman, and better yet, she was married to the Hokage. She was married to the man who was respected by all ninjas in the world right now. She was married to the one person she loved with all her heart. Kiba looked to where she was gazing at and he simply smiled when he realized she was staring at Naruto. He was genuinely happy for her. She was finally beside the one man who she's longed for her whole life. Are you happy, Hinata? Hinata turned her attention back to him and she nodded without hesitation. I'm more than happy, Kiba. He may be Hokage, and I have mad respect for him, but if he happens to hurt you in any way, just know that Shino and I will always be right here for you, okay? Hinata laughed softly and her eyes softened at him. I know. Thanks, Kiba. Once they entered the border of the Land of Fire, Naruto stopped to let everyone rest before they continued home. He was going to rest earlier, but he figured it'd be better to do it in the forest with plenty of shade instead of in the middle of the desert. There are plenty of streams here, so feel free to venture out to refill your water gourds. We'll move out in 20 minutes. Naruto announced. His eyes then scanned around to see where Hinata was and then he felt that same irritating feeling again when he saw her sitting down next to Kiba. He watched as Kiba offered her an onigiri and then much to his surprise, he saw a couple of men go up to her, offering her their water gourds. What the hell? Don't they know how to keep their distance from the Hokage's wife? He narrowed his eyes. He kept his attention on her as she simply smiled at them and shook her head, politely rejecting their offers. He felt a little relieved knowing that she was a faithful and loyal person, so no matter how many men pursued her, she wouldn't waver. Well, at least, he hoped she didn't. When the men scattered away, and it was just her and Kiba again, she coincidentally glanced his way and their eyes met. He stood captivated by her pearl eyes and he swore his heart skipped a beat when she flashed him a quick smile before Kiba started talking to her again. Right. He wasn't going to restrict her from being with her friends. If she wanted to spend time with Kiba or Shino, he had no right to tear that freedom away from her. She was busy and restricted enough just being married to him, so being able to talk freely with her teammates again was something that he knew was important to her. Hokage. He forced himself to look away from Hinata and then turned to see Kakashi grinning behind his mask. You look a little irritated, Hokage. That's rare. Naruto blinked and then he softly cleared his throat and loosened his expression. It's nothing. Kakashi's glanced over to where Hinata was and he smirked. I'm assuming you're jealous that Kiba is so close with your wife. Naruto sighed. Why was it that everyone saw through him so easily? Yay. I'm not too thrilled about that. But he's her friend, and it's not my place to restrict her from being with her friends, even if it's another man. Kakashi raised an eyebrow. The old Naruto he knew would definitely make a scene and be rowdy about it, but wow, being Hokage really seemed to make him grow up. Maybe it was just the fact that he had someone as patient and humble as Hinata by his side, so he knew he shouldn't cause a scene. Or maybe it was just because he respected and loved her enough to know that it was okay for her to have guy friends. Either way, Naruto definitely matured. It's a little different to see you like this, but it's a good thing. Naruto blinked curiously. To see me like what? Kakashi chuckled. Well, to see you love her back like this. I think everyone's truly happy that you chose Hinata as your wife. Ah, yay. Naruto couldn't flat out say that he didn't love her, because truthfully, he knew for a fact that he was developing feelings for her. To say that he felt nothing for her just didn't seem right, but to say that he loves her didn't seem right either. Whatever it was that he felt for Hinata just wasn't as strong as what he felt for Sakura. Of course, even when they reached Konoha 2 days later, Naruto's duties were far from over. He groaned when he opened his office to see a pile of new documents ready to be read and signed. While everyone else was going to be sound asleep tonight, he'd have to pull an all-nighter just to finish looking through it. He walked over to his desk and sat down. He let out a yawn, stretched out his arms, and cracked his knuckles before he started sorting out the papers to sign. He was never fond of reading, but ever since he became Hokage, he's probably read more in these past few months than in his whole life. Just as he was about to pick up his pen to sign his signature on the first document, he sensed an all too familiar chakra. He looked up and suddenly felt 10 times better when he saw Hinata come in. Hey. She greeted him quietly and then walked over to sit across from him. Why didn't you just go straight home to sleep? Well, I can ask you the same question. Hinata's eyes averted down the pile of papers in front of him. Can't you do that tomorrow? It's been a long 3 days of traveling. I just thought it'd be better to get it over with. Naruto shrugged. I'm gonna get worried about you if you stay up all night. Let's go home and then you can come back tomorrow morning. Hinata insisted. She didn't want him to overwork himself. He was always full of energy, and no matter how tired or exhausted he was, he had the tendency to keep going. She loved his ambition, but sometimes she wished he knew his limits. She reached over and gently placed her hand over his. Please. Naruto stayed quiet and his eyes roamed over his paperwork. Then he sighed in defeat and placed the pen back down on the desk. How can I say no to you? He flashed a smile at her and then got up, walking over to her side. She gladly entangled her fingers with his as they dashed to their place. Within a matter of a few seconds, they were both already in front of their front door. Naruto unlocked the door and they both went it, taking off their Hokage attires. Naruto hung his Hokage hat and robe on the side of the couch and then let himself sink in the comfortable cushion. Hinata slid off her lavender robe and then she placed it nicely on the coffee table. She heard Naruto patting the spot beside him and she guessed that that meant he wanted her to sit with him. She simply smiled at him and sat down next to him. She nearly gasped in surprise when he suddenly wrapped one arm around her small waist and pulled her closer to him. Then she couldn't help but blush when she felt him place a soft kiss on the side of her head. Ah, geez. Whenever he was like this, her heart felt like it would burst. Naruto closed his eyes and then let himself relax. It was comforting and relieving to be next to her like this. It was strange that her mere presence gave him such a sense of security like this. Hinata glanced up and was glad to see how peaceful his expression was. It was a good thing he came home instead of working on those papers. Her eyes gazed at his face, memorizing every aspect of him. She loved this man so much. She loved everything about him. And being his wife, being able to be the person who stood beside him while he lived his dream made her more than happy. Naturally, her eyes fell on his lips. She had only kissed him once and she remembered clearly how it took every ounce of courage in her body to be able to do that. She also remembered how ravenously he had kissed her the next day. She felt herself blushing once again at that memory and she lightly cleared her throat. Naruto. She called his name quietly. No answer. Wow, was he asleep already? Hinata blinked and then placed her hand on his chest, shaking him a little. He didn't respond. She sensed how calm his chakra was and saw how he was breathing in and out slowly. She almost laughed at how fast he fell asleep. Her gaze fell upon his lips again. She has never known the feeling of desire for a man before. Her love for him was pure and all she wanted was to be by him. But ever since that first kiss he gave her, she anticipated his every touch and her heart pounded at the smallest gesture of affection that he gave her. Maybe it was because she's never been so intimate with a man before, so all this was very different for her. From the beginning, she was drawn to his personality and to be honest, she never paid much attention to his looks. But now when she looked at him, she realized how attractive he was. His blonde hair and blue eyes were the perfect complement to each other. His body was well built from the obvious years of training and fighting. His voice, noticeably deeper now, sent chills down her spine both whenever he spoke gently to her and when he spoke with authority to the rest of the village. His smile was a definite bonus. She suddenly had the urge to lean up and kiss him. But, would that be taking advantage of him, since he wasn't going to be aware of it? She then reminded herself that this was her husband, and that it was okay to kiss him if she felt like it. It was a natural thing for married couples to do. She finally gave in to her desires and she leaned up closer to his face. Her hand moved away from his chest and instead came up to gently cup the side of his cheek. Her eyes fluttered closed as she gave him a gentle kiss. She let her lips linger on his for a moment longer, savoring the warmth of his skin against hers, before she began to pull back again. But then her eyes shot open when she felt his grip around her waist tighten, not allowing her to break away from him. Her heart fluttered when she felt him move his lips against hers, kissing her deeper. Was he actually awake this whole time? He finally pulled away from her. She saw his eyes open and then he grinned at her. He tricked you. Hinata blushed. She glared at him and lightly hit the side of his shoulder. Why, you're mean. Naruto chuckled at her embarrassed expression. It was the first time that he messed with her. Her timid reaction was quite cute. He didn't think she would actually kiss him, though. That part was amusing. Hinata pouted and she couldn't bring herself to look at him. She was really embarrassed right now. What would he think of her now? That she was some kind of weird woman who would kiss him while he slept. Gosh, why did I do that? She tried to push away from him to get up, but he kept his hold on her. Hinata. Damn it, the way he called her name gave her butterflies. She stopped struggling against him, but she still couldn't find the courage to meet his eyes. Naruto smiled at his beautiful wife and he moved his face closer to hers, leaning his forehead on hers. He came to the conclusion that although he still couldn't say that he loves her yet, he can absolutely admit that he adored her very much. He never thought he would grow so fond of her and he never thought he'd be so intimate with her like this. Just 6 months ago, they were both very hesitant and doubtful of their marriage, but at this point, he really couldn't imagine anyone else that he'd rather spend his life with. In the beginning, if he had a choice to choose between Sakura and Hinata, he would choose Sakura in a heartbeat. But now, he wasn't so sure. Now, all he could think about was Hinata. His mind was clouded with her captivating pearl eyes, her kind voice, and her warm smile. Everything about her was just so perfect. He was sure now that not even Sakura could compare to her. He wanted to keep Hinata by his side, he wanted to be together with her and he wanted her to belong to him, and only him. Hinata. He said her name again, but quieter this time. Don't ever leave me, okay? Hinata's heart raced even faster than it already was. She shut her eyes when he closed the gap between them, capturing her lips with his own once more. She gasped softly when he pulled her even closer so that her body molded perfectly against his, and then he dipped lower and placed a gentle kiss on her neck. He didn't go any further though, because he knew they both weren't ready for anything like that yet. Though he very much desired her, he respected her. And he wasn't going to consummate their marriage when he wasn't even sure of his feelings yet. He wanted to give himself fully and entirely to her when the right time came. Hinata was dazed and a little lightheaded from his actions. She realized that he's been kissing her a lot lately, and right now was probably the most intimate that they've ever been with each other. She nearly shrieked when he suddenly got up and picked her up bridal style and carried her to their bedroom. She stayed quiet as he laid her down on their bed and gave her yet another heart-warming kiss. Naruto then laid down next to her and embraced her in his arms, pulling the covers up to cover them. "Good night, Hinata," he muttered softly. Hinata couldn't even find the words to describe how she was feeling. The way that he acting right now made her heart ache. She knew for a fact that he was opening his heart to her, but the way he kissed her so lovingly, the way he stared at her so longingly, and the way he spoke to her so gently made it seem so much more than that.